This is the new Mazda MX-5 Miata 35th anniversary, and it's a special edition that celebrates, well, 35 years of the Miata. The Miata was refreshed a couple of years ago, and it's been ages since I've reviewed an ND Miata, so I figured now would be a good time for a full review and a tour of all the Miata's quirks and features. If you're listing a car on Cars and Bids, you want the best possible result, and that starts with presentation. I always tell our community that ceramic made simple is the way to go. Mothers has formulated these products for fanatics, meaning you get professional grade results that are incredibly user-friendly. You don't need a professional detailer to get that deep gloss. It's affordable, it's accessible at basically any auto parts store, and it's the single best way to add curb appeal to your auction listing before you hit that submit button. Visit mothers.com to find out more and to purchase Mothers products. All right, time for the quirks and features, the latest ND Miata and the special 35th anniversary model. But first, a little ND background. This generation, the 4th generation Miata, came out for the 2016 model year, so it's been out for a decade now, and there have been several updates along the way. By far the biggest was in 2019 when they boosted power. The original ND Miata had only 155 horses, got some criticism for being a little slow, so it's been boosted to 181 horses since 2019. And even now for 26, that's still where it remains. 181 horse, 2-liter 4-cylinder engine, and you can see it is a very accessible engine. You don't have any large, ugly plastic engine covers in here making things harder to reach. It's all open and available for people to go in and tinker, which is kind of part of the point of the Miata, and they get that, and so that's what they do. Now, the next big change to the Miata was in 24, just a couple years ago, and there were some, let's call them tweaks. The exterior got a little bit of tweaks, not very substantial, but if you're into the Miata, you can tell. And there were some other changes too. The infotainment screen got larger compared to previous Miata models. The limited slip differential was upgraded and improved, and they made some other tweaks primarily focused on handling and suspension to make the car a little bit more fun to drive. So even though it's a 10-year-old design, they've kept it modern and kept updating it all throughout its production run. But as you can probably tell, none of that stuff is really huge. No major groundbreaking updates to the ND Miata, and yet here I am reviewing one because it's been a long time since I've reviewed an ND Miata, and yet this car is still so beloved among car enthusiasts. I figured maybe it was time to get behind the wheel of another ND. I'm never gonna complain about that. I'm always kind of looking for an excuse. So here we are reviewing the 35th anniversary. So, what exactly is special about the 35th anniversary Miata? Well, to begin, it commemorates 35 years of the Miata. Yes, that is an accurate number. Miata came out back in 1990, so we are 35 years into this thing. Kind of hard to believe, but that's the situation. Now, the Miata has always kind of been about special editions. All throughout its life, there have been various limited edition, one-year-only models. They've been kind of a cool, limited thing. They've come and gone, really a Miata hallmark. And so this is yet another limited edition special Miata like we've come to expect from this car. What exactly is different? Well, we begin with the color. Sort of this beautiful dark red with a beige interior and a beige top. Now this is a bit odd. Most convertibles these days have black convertible tops. Beige tops were a thing of the past, and indeed this special edition color combination is intended to recall some of the more famous Miata special editions of the 1990s when they did this exact thing, this dark red over beige with the beige top. They sort of brought it back as an homage to special editions from the 90s like the M edition that were beloved at the time, and now here we are again today. today. But the special edition goes beyond just the colors. You also get Napa leather, which is sort of a high quality, more comfortable, softer, nicer feeling leather that's only in the 35th anniversary model. It is a very nice and beautiful addition to this car. And importantly, the changes aren't all cosmetic. In fact, most of them aren't. All the 35th anniversary Miata models are manual transmission. They are manual only. Very rare to see that in a special edition car today, but that's the situation here. This car also comes with Bilstein suspension dampers and a strut tower brace and the limited slip differential. It's optional on the regular Miata. In fact, if you want those features in a regular Miata, you have to get the Brembo BBS Recaro package to get all that stuff. Here, it comes with the 35th anniversary, which is pretty cool because this is kind of like a luxury model with the nice leather and the luxury colors, and yet you also get all of the sporty upgrades as well. And another cool thing about the 35th anniversary, it's limited. There are not many of these being made. Mazda has said only 350 of these will come to the United States. They haven't yet announced exactly how many will be made globally, but it should be pointed out there is a badge on the outside of the car that actually gives the serial number of each 35th anniversary. And this one is number 1790. So even though only 350 of these are coming to the States, clearly they're making at least 1790 of them for the world. Obviously a lot going to Japan, other markets, but it is a limited production car globally and quite limited here in the US. But anyway, next up, let's talk through some of the other ND Miata quirks, starting with the fact that it's really small. This car, at only 154 inches long, is really small. It is 2.5 feet shorter in length than a Toyota Camry, which is sort of a regular, rational, mid-size car. This is tiny, and amazingly, it manages to weigh under 2,500 pounds. Even in today's modern era, with all the safety equipment and tech features people demand and expect, this car is still incredibly lightweight. Huge kudos to Mazda for pulling this off. It's obviously tempting to just add more power and more weight like so many other cars have, but the Miata stays true to its kind of lightness ethos, and it benefits from that significantly. I also happen to think the ND Miata is a gorgeous car. Big reason this design's been able to stick around for a decade now is it's a nice design. It really looks good. Very clean and simple, and yet also kind of like aggressive and muscular. It looks cool. It is cool. They made it look nice, and they've done a great job keeping this design, not messing with it or updating it, tweaking it too much like so many cars as they go through a model cycle. It's a really attractive and really small car. And next up, we move inside the ND, where there are quite a few interesting quirks, like, for example, the cup holders that can be moved around. Take a look at this. You can lift up this cup holder, and then you can actually place it up here. There's a little slot in the passenger footwell where the cup holder can go in case the passenger wants easier access to a drink. When the passenger is not using the cup holder, they can lift it up out of the slot and put it back into the slot next to the seat itself, so the cup holder can go back and sit in there. Movable cup holders. Actually, kind of a cool idea. Also interesting in here, you do not have a glove box in the normal place on the passenger side of the dashboard, so instead, you have a storage compartment in between the seats that can lock with a key. You can open this up and put all of your important paperwork in there and then lock it just like you would lock a glove box, except it's just sort of been moved to a different location. And in fact, basically everything between the seats here is kind of interesting. I already showed you the cup holders, the glove box. There's also a wind deflector here, which you can just pull out. If you don't want your wind to be deflected, you don't need that. Take the wind deflector out and you're good to go. Be as windy as possible. The other thing in here, you can see there is a rather large latch, and that's for the roof. When the roof is down and latched, if you want to close the roof, you lift on that latch and the roof kind of pops open. And then, and this is the really cool thing about Miatas, you can close the the roof entirely from the driver's seat sitting in here manually all by yourself. You just reach back and then pull the roof on and then latch it in place and it's closed, and you never moved out of the driver's seat to do that. And of course you can do the same thing the opposite direction. If you want to open up the roof, just unlatch it from the driver's seat, push it back, reach back around, push it down into place until it latches and locks closed, and then the roof has been opened. Obviously this is not as easy from a physical exertion perspective as a power operated soft top with a button that you press and then you wait for it all to happen for you while you just sit there. But the benefit is obvious. Number one, it saves weight. Number two, it saves complexity. And number three is just really efficient. If it starts raining, you don't have to worry about like pulling over and pulling the parking brake and meeting all the conditions of a power soft top. Instead, you just whoop, boop, and you're all done. It's a Miata hallmark. But anyway, on to some other interesting quirks in here. Let's talk infotainment. You can see the screen sort of sticks up out of the dashboard, and like I mentioned, this screen got a little larger a few years ago. For 24, they enlarged the screen, which is nice, but unfortunately, it's still controlled with this dial in the center. This is not a touchscreen. It's all controlled with this dial and these buttons here in the middle, and it is shockingly slow. For an infotainment screen in 2026, this is really surprisingly slow that they allow this to happen. I think if you asked most Miata owners, they'd probably tell you they didn't really care that the screen got 2 inches bigger. They would have preferred a touch screen that is just a lot more responsive and easier to use. Now, with that said, it is worth pointing out in this screen you have some pretty nice features. Obviously, entertainment, your radio, music, but you also have navigation in here, which is nice to see, and Apple CarPlay and Android Auto built in, so you can sync up your phone and use that. Beyond that, you have some other pretty impressive features in this car, like for example, heated seats. As you can see, driver and passenger heated seats. The buttons are down there. You also have full automatic climate control in here, not just turn on the cold and let it blow. You can set a temperature like you might expect in a nice luxury car, and the climate control will make that work. You also have automatic high beams in here, so it'll brighten and dim the high beams depending on whether there's a car coming towards you. You have automatic headlights, and you also have automatic windshield wipers. Now, none of these things are groundbreaking amazing, but I point them out because it's pretty impressive that they're able to include this many modern luxury features in a car that is so minimalist and so lightweight. It's not like you buy a 2,500 pound car and you have to compromise on all sorts of stuff. You actually still get a pretty nice array of luxury equipment, even though you're getting a lightweight sports car. It's a really impressive feat of packaging, this car. A few other interesting quirks in here. One thing, I love the climate vents in an ND Miata. You have 3 climate vents. They are silver circles, one on each side and then another one in the center. Pretty standard. But you also have a 4th climate vent. It's this one. It doesn't look anything like its brothers or sisters. It's still a climate vent, and it's obviously there for the passenger, but they didn't make it a silver circle. Instead, just this sort of flat, normal-looking climate vent. It's the red-headed stepchild of the ND climate vents. Another thing I like in here, another nice quirk, over to the left of the steering wheel, you have buttons to turn off traction control, and there are 2 of them. There's a standard all-off button, you can see, and then there's one that's off with a checkered flag. And this is sort of like a sport mode racetrack button where you don't necessarily turn off everything, you're just dialing it way back to turn off most of it in order to be optimized for racetrack driving, which is kind of cool to have those 2 options. That's how you know you're in a serious sports car. Another interesting quirk in here is the gauge cluster, which looks like a fairly typical analog gauge cluster. Actually, the left side is a screen, but it's not really that configurable. Still, pretty standard gauge cluster situation, but there is one odd thing. It displays the gear that you're in as you're driving around. So even though this is a manual car and you manually put it into each gear, you know what gear you're in, the car still displays that for you. And as you drive around, it gives you guidance on when to upshift. So if you're in 3rd, it'll display like go from 3 to 4 right now. It's very conservative too. The guidance is meant to maximize fuel efficiency, not performance, which is kind of odd in a sporty car like this. But nonetheless, you do have the gear display and and upshift guidance in your gauge cluster, which is certainly odd. Also unusual in here, the headrests have two notable features. One, you can see the 35th anniversary mark is there, 35th, and then there's like a floral arrangement around this to celebrate the 35th anniversary. That's kind of cool to see imprinted in the Napa leather. But more interestingly, you have headrest speakers. This is another Miata hallmark that they've been doing for years in Miata models. You can see it sort of on each side of the headrest to match up with your ears, so you get perfect audio quality as you're sitting here driving the car. Even with the roof down, you have good speaker mounted near your head so you can hear. By the way, speaking of that 35th anniversary in the headrest, one other detail in here, the floor mats say 35th anniversary, a special nod to this special car. Other than that, no real 35th anniversary badging or specialness in the interior, besides, of course, that beautiful Napa leather. And by the way, when you're looking at that 35th anniversary tag on the floor mat, you can find another of the ND's interesting quirks, the giant hump in the passenger footwell. This is some mechanical thing under there. All the NDs have it. It kind of cuts into space, but it's not really where you'd put your feet, but it certainly is a characteristic weirdness of the ND Miata. One other item worth pointing out regarding the interior, kind of a drawback like the infotainment system, I really wish there was door panel storage in this car, like a little pocket on the door panel for a wallet or some smaller item, but sadly you don't get that. Between that, no door storage, and no glove box, there really is not that much storage in this interior. It's pretty much just that central glove box and a little storage compartment between the seats. That's about it. Small car, small storage makes sense, but it is kind of surprisingly impractical in terms of small item storage in this interior. And finally, we move on to the cargo area, where the Miata is one of the few cars remaining in existence, possibly the last one, that doesn't have an exterior trunk release. There's no button anywhere out here you can use to open the trunk. So getting back here, you have two options. One is a button in the driver's footwell, sort of under the dashboard. You press here, the trunk opens up. The other is the key, a little button on the key to open up the trunk. You press it, it pops open, and you get inside. Not really all that hard, but it is uncommon to find a car that doesn't have a trunk popper on the outside. Now, once you get in the trunk, you will notice nothing particularly special or interesting in here. You just sort of have a trunk. Not exactly huge, but decent size, practical enough considering the size of the car and probably how most people use it. That's kind of all the trunk space you need. The only real quirk of the trunk is that there's a little light inside and a little switch. You press the switch, turn on the light in case you want to illuminate your cargo. Otherwise, pretty standard fare trunk like you would expect. As for pricing, the Miata now starts right around $31,000, which remains a pretty good bargain in today's world where the new Honda Prelude starts over $43,000. This is a much better car and it's a lot cheaper. This version, the 35th anniversary, with all its nice stuff and extra equipment, is still only about $36,000, which is a pretty good deal considering how much fun you get from this car. For a brand new vehicle, it really is pretty special. And people like it. Sales figures continue to be pretty strong. Mazda has sold about 8,000 to 10,000 units of the Miata per year, every year since the ND came out a decade ago. Obviously not a massive hit, huge seller like some cars, but it's still a pretty consistent amount of sales, especially for a car that's starting to get old. 10 plus years on the market, and they're still selling in pretty large numbers, which suggests there's still a loyal and devoted fan base for this car who still wants what this car is offering. And it makes sense because this car is offering a lot. And further proof of that comes from behind the wheel. So let me take it out on the road and drive it and explain what really makes the ND so great. All right, driving the ND Miata. You know, I have no real reason to review this car. The changes for 24 were not really that significant. The 35th anniversary edition is a small production run, a cosmetic upgrade mostly. But they reached out and they said, hey, you want to drive an ND? And yeah, I do want to drive an ND. I think everybody should drive an ND every so often. I'm on the record as saying the ND is my very favorite Miata. I think the ND combines things about each previous Miata that we all liked into kind of this one perfect best Miata. You sort of have the size, the smallness from the NA, you have a little bit more power like an NB Mazda Speed, you have more tech like an NC, you put it all together in this just amazing package, and it's shocking that they're able to make this car so light and so little and so tossable in today's era. And I gotta say, driving this car, when I first drove the ND, I agreed with most people, it didn't quite have enough power, they bumped it up. Now today I drive the car, it's still not that fast, like it's still slow, but in a world where every car is going after more power, more power, more power, it is nice to see that there are still a few cars out there, including this one, that's going after balance. That's going after sort of this kind of all-encompassing ethos of driving enjoyment that a lot of cars have given up on. Sort of a holistic approach to the overall approach to the driving enjoyment, not just straight line performance, not just adding power and weight and tech, just making a great driving car in all arenas. And that's what the ND Miata really is. It would almost be a shame if it got too much more power and it got more overweight. That's just not, it's not what I want from my Miata. I get in this car and I think this is just good balance. It's slow, you've got to ring it out, that's part of the fun. Ringing out the powertrain, this little 4-cylinder, you still get 25, 30 miles per gallon no matter how hard you're pushing this thing, and it's still fun. It's fun to just accelerate away from my house, going from first to second gear at 9 miles an hour, you know, when it's early morning and there's dew on the car. This thing is fun in all situations. And I gotta say, one of the big reasons why it's so fun is because they have really nailed the experience of the clutch and shifter in this car. They really, really, really have. It's just so enjoyable and so engaging to shift gears, and the clutch is so easy and so perfect. Like, I'm sitting in heavy traffic now and kind of bumper to bumper, I don't even really mind because I get to shift gears. I hate sitting in traffic with a manual transmission, but this manual transmission, I'm okay with it. And man, is it possible. I guess I haven't really talked about it that much because it's almost sort of obvious, but the way this car feels going around corners is unbelievable. Like I said, balance. There's just this amazing balance to this car that is just absolutely intoxicating. You throw it around and you get to rev up and you get to slam it in coming out of the corner, you know, and you're still not going crazy fast, but it feels fast. You're low, there's a lot of sound, you're doing a lot because you're shifting this amazing manual transmission. The car stays flat, the car stays so good, it really makes you feel confident in your abilities as you're going around corners. It's just, it just combines so many wonderful things. It's hard to feel any way about this car other than bliss, unless you're just a big power person. And I get that. I get there are people who get in this and say, this is silly. You know, I don't want something little and light, and I want something that, you know, that has a big V8 and goes. And I understand there's people like that. There are absolutely cars for them, and this isn't one of them. But it's just such an amazing sports car experience that really does remind you of the old days. You know, the ethos of this car was to create sort of like an old school British sports car, but reliable. It still feels that way. I'm amazed they're able to keep it going into 2025 with all of the safety regulations and tech and kind of features that people demand or are mandated, but they do. And they're able to still make this amazing car and still focus more on balance than power, and they do such a good job doing it. This is sort of a benchmark by which you measure other sports cars. There are a few cars like that in the market that are benchmarks. The Mustang, the 911, you know, this is how these cars feel, and the ND is certainly one of those cars. And I'm reminded why I feel that way when I get in this car and drive it, and I see it as such a great example of what to do when creating a good, balanced sports car. And so that's the new Mazda MX-5 35th anniversary. It's amazing how great the ND Miata is. It's my very favorite Miata ever made, and it continues to remind me why, even a decade after it first went on sale. And now it's time to give this Miata a DougScore. And the DougScore is here, 55 out of 100, which is the very same score the Miata RF earned a few years ago when I reviewed it just after it came out. The simple truth is the ND Miata is an excellent car, and the weekend scores here reflect just how wonderful this car is at its purpose, providing great driving thrills and a lovely experience. It also remains affordable, attractive, and modern, and it's still one of my favorite sports cars on sale today.